So guys, I do have something on my channel called Tough Videos where, I talk about like, tough things that I had to deal with during my life or some things that I felt were like a little unfair. And in regards to just like how I was raised, but also just, it could also be situations that I've not handled, kind of correctly growing up really, because it's not just, me talking about, maybe something that was kind of like a jerk thing that my parents did to me. I also want to talk about some jerk behavior that I've done, really, because I'm not perfect. I've made a bunch of mistakes in my life, really. But I do want to talk about what I call the Long Hill Road incident. And what happened was that when I was in middle school and high school, I grew up and I went to and I used to live in Guilford, Connecticut, on Long Hill Road. And what happened one day was that they had a Walmart that was like 3 miles into town. And what happened was that I went there one day with my brother just to hang out, just get out of the house during summertime, and we would go to Walmart and we talked to our dad about that. And then what my dad started to do was saying, okay, well, your younger brother needs milk. He was a baby at that time, so they kind of expected us to walk 3 miles to get a gallon of milk and 3 miles back home, really. And sometimes my dad would be drinking the milk and just be chuckling, be like, you guys are gonna get it. And I remember like one day, it rained and we didn't get it, and my parents were really like mad at us. And we kind of explained that because it was thunder and lightning. And then there are also some people who were friends of our family and just that would just like give us a ride back to and from and said, your parents shouldn't be doing that. And nowadays it's almost considered like a form of child abuse because nowadays people are very like, okay, well, what would have happened if your kids get abducted by Herbert the pervert? Or, obviously, if we were girls, obviously that would not be allowed because people are like, okay, any man will pick them up and rape them or something like that because how we're very protective of our kids. But I also just didn't like that because it was just that type of thing, too. My parents worked in New Haven and Hartford, so it's almost like, what, you're expecting your child to go down into town, walk 3 miles, get a gallon of milk, and then also walk all the way back, and you can't get off your dead ass and actually just do it yourself, really, because there's just no logic within that. It's almost just as I said, it's just like just in a way just taking advantage. When I want to come home, I want to come home. When I have a spoiled brat kid like my younger brother who had very unhealthy eating habits, like drinking like milk because there's sugar in it and other things like that, oh, well, we have to just, bend to his needs. He needs to learn, instead of giving him water or whatever, he needs to have an unhealthy diet. But, I just didn't like that because, again, if I had kids or anything like that, I would be like, okay, well, if you are going to town, could you do this for me? I wouldn't really expect, or if you said, no, I don't feel like doing it, or dad, what, obviously you're carrying something that's 4 or 5 pounds, and in addition to just, the long walk or whatever. So I just think that, every parenting style is different, really, but definitely, expecting your kids, in like, humid weather or 80-degree or 90-degree weather to go 3 miles down the road, 3.5 miles down the road, 3.5 miles back, really, to just, deliver milk or pick up milk is just ridiculous. And this was in like 2004, 2005, so again, this is not the 1930s, so it just makes no sense. And then the other thing was that I remember like one time, my parents got a babysitter for my younger brother, and I remember like working all day, going to high school at 6 a.m. Then I had to work on the afternoon. It was like 8 or 9 at night. No, it was like 7 at night. So, let's just be fair, 7 at night. And I remember like my dad saying something like, no, you're going to walk home because we don't have a car seat. So you have to think about your little brother, or we care about him or things like that. So I remember how my parents expected me after all that to walk 3.5 miles home, really, because they didn't have a car, because the babysitter didn't have a car seat for my younger brother. And again, one of the people that I walked home with that worked there, she actually picked me up and kind of said like, she kind of just picked me up and just said like, you could have asked somebody. And my parents were like, oh, you could have asked somebody either. So, like parents do that sometimes where, sometimes they would expect a lot from their kids, or they would just be like, okay, you know what, since you don't stand up for yourself, I'm going to just, put expectations on you that another person would just really be, which deserves a lot of criticism or just a little unfair. I also remember another time, like, different, that I had to babysit my younger brother during spring break, and my dad was kind of like saying, you know what, I don't want to pay for a babysitter. I don't, my dad was like saying to my other father, you know what, I don't think Byron minds, and then because he says nothing, and then my other dad was like, no, he does mind. And you will not leave my child at home. You will not leave my 8-year-old child at home for 8 hours, type of thing, really. So, it's not good when, parents just take advantage of their kids like that. They expect, as Chris Rock famously said, you're supposed to expect to be a third parent, or your parents just don't want to go out of their way and do something that's easy. Obviously, you are expecting, a 16-year-old who doesn't even weigh over 100 pounds, who you underfeed in a way, because my parents had a mentality of portion control. You know what? If I remember like one day, like I worked after I worked all that hours and stuff like that at work, and then walked home and then got picked up. I think my parents made me like a ham sandwich with an expired ham, cheese sandwich, expired cheese, and some apple that was like slightly bruised because they didn't want to like spend a couple of money on a pizza or even like a McDonald's type of thing, really, which they would usually do for my younger brother. But it was always kind of like, you know what, I expect a lot from you, and tough shit is the way that the world works. But, it kind of is one of those things too that, that's also another thing when it comes to parenting, is that sometimes when you have children who work very hard or have a lot of expectations, you should treat them with respect. If you have an attitude the world's unfair, or you need to pitch in and help the family, or you have to be a babysitter, or you have to do something stupid like, in the middle of summer, you have to walk 3 miles down the fucking road, get a gallon of milk, and bring it all the way back for your younger brother because my parents are too lazy to stop after work. It does say something about it does say something about, just a lack of respect, really. And I remember, when I went to college, I was interviewed by a school newspaper, and I said, like, with my upbringing, I felt like an object. I felt like a piece of property. I didn't feel like a human being. I didn't feel like a person. And some of it comes back from these things, but also other things that happened to me around a lot of emotional abuse, which is a story for another time. But definitely, I just didn't really agree with that. I work at Yale New Haven Health Hospital, so and I live right by Southern Connecticut State University. So, if I had a child and they would walk to Walgreens every single day, I wouldn't say something like, okay, you know what, can you pick me up 3 or 4 cases of Canada Dry? Can you pick me up some almond milk and other things like that, a lot of heavy stuff, and treat them like a walking camel almost. Like, I understand it's going to teach your child responsibility and giving and also sacrificing for the family. But sometimes, there's people who do it in the wrong way. And I do think, we don't kind of agree, walking 3 miles into town to get milk and bringing it back is not the way to teach responsibility. Have someone to clean around the house, or be like, okay, since you guys are home, can you take care of like maybe 1 or 2 hours worth of chores, just because I want to teach you to, apply yourself. I don't want you sitting around all day, type of thing, really, But, there's a way of teaching that without just, there's a way of teaching that without just, just being a little like over the top, really.